16 Minutes of Care is a podcast based on the CARE principles, a strategic framework that reveals how brands create impact by caring and, as a result, grow their business. In each episode, Isabel welcomes a company executive who explains how CARE has helped their business grow successfully and sustainably.
Welcome in 16 Minutes of Care, the new podcast by the CARE Principles. Today my guest is Ellen Petit. She's country manager for the Netherlands and Belgium of GoStudent. GoStudent is one of the world's leading online tutoring providers. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you here. Before we start, let me say specifically for the people who are listening that you might hear some snoring in the back of this podcast. It's not you, it's not me. We are widely awake. It's my dog, Lou. She's part of this podcast series, and I'm very sorry, folks, but sometimes she falls asleep. So if you hear this, it's not us, it's the dog. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you so much.
Could you explain a bit more what GoStudent is? You're a startup, but what do you do?
Basically, we provide online tutoring services to children, 6 to 19, on an individual basis, and for long-term, we work together long-term with our students and our parents.
So tutoring, online tutoring, that means when they are not good at something in school, it could be anything, it could be mathematics, it could be a language, it could be whatever they have in school, they can have an online teacher that helps them to get better at that certain course, correct?
Yes, with a small, I think, misconception that it's not necessarily because they're not good at something. The children might not fit into what we think, what currently education is. So, and that results in bad grades, which we then translate to they're not good at it. What we say is that they're often very good at it. They just need a different approach.
Okay, interesting. We'll talk more about that. Just a little bit, going back a little bit, I said GoStudent, it's a startup. It was founded in Vienna in 2016. Both founders already gave tuitions and it started, I think, via WhatsApp. So they really started this from their own experience.
Absolutely, 1,000%. One of those great ideas turned into a company, yes.
Can you explain a bit more how they started?
It's a very funny story, and I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Felix, one of the founders, very, very good at math, like genius level. And his younger brother's friends, like ask your brother for us. What's the solution? And that became bigger, and then people started doing WhatsApp, and then he was in a bar with Gregor, the other founder, and that turned into a company where they said, okay, this is great that we're helping children. Could we probably also make that into a business and help more and more and more people, and eventually worldwide? Yes.
Yes, it's amazing. Public schools, they really suffer from a lack of teachers. You received a 4 to 5 times increase in the number of teacher applications. Is that because of COVID or what happened?
Our tutors are mostly, I'm going to say 90% students, and that's a specific choice. One of the reasons that children don't do well in schools is because they lack a connection with their teacher, whether that be an age thing, whether that be somebody explaining the material one way and it's just not clicking for them. And we notice that students who are maybe studying that specific subject or have been very good at it, they sit together one-on-one and they're able to relate much more to a student's experience, like one of our students' experience. So for most of them, it's a part-time job. And yes, over COVID, that was something that continued on, where many part-time jobs, like hospitality, for instance, maybe dried up. We kept going.
Ellen, would you say that in the DNA of the company, you care more for people or more for planet?
We care obviously for both, but the product is 100% geared towards helping children and with helping their families. And as such a young company, we are only as good as our people are. So 100% people, yes.
People-centric,
absolutely.
That is really the focus. Yes. Great. We'll talk about Care for Planet later, but let's talk a bit more about this mission, about this vision that your two founders had. What are they trying to change?
we're trying to unlock the full potential of every student, and that sort of touches a little bit on what I said in the beginning, especially in Western Europe here. Tutoring, you're not doing well, you're not getting good grades, you're not having high enough grades to get into a certain studies. It's all about those numbers. But what we sometimes forget is that with the focus on the numbers, children's self-confidence goes down, and we sort of launch them into adult life, not feeling good about themselves, not enjoying learning, and that we think is an issue, potential issue going on in your life, because learning is something that needs to continuously needs to happen. So making sure that all students get to their full potential, even though maybe in the current school system that's not reached.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe that the current school system is maybe too much focused on grades and on the learning capacities? How different is the online tutoring at GoStudent?
So what we do is we don't have our own curriculum. So we tutor, we help with the sort of the gaps in knowledge that students experience in school, and the hallmark of that is bad grades. I think there's a massive focus on grades. I think, sure, you need to be able to measure a result with something, so a grade in and of itself is not a bad measuring tool, but it does not take into account the interest of the student, but also the way they learn. Everybody learns differently, and when you're into adult life, that gets facilitated. You can schedule your day the way you want it if you're a morning person or an evening person, as a for instance. But students need to go into a classroom, 30 people, one person sending out. You need to pick that up, and you need to reproduce that the way we need you to reproduce that, when we want you to reproduce that. If you can do that, you get a good grade. That has nothing to do with somebody's intelligence or their eagerness to learn. And we hope that with giving students one-to-one attention, we can at least fit them into that mold a little bit better for now, so that grades go up, their self-esteem develops, and they enjoy learning again. They understand that it can be applicable to daily situations, and that eagerness, I think that is what makes people, great people, caring people. Mm-hmm.
And you said that, so your target group is between 6 and 19 years old.
Yes.
At 6 years old, how important is it to already get extra tutoring next to going to school? Because going to school when you're 6 years old, it's suddenly already a first step into like the big world. Yes. Then in the evening, still having online tutorings, isn't that too much for children?
It might be. I think parents know their children. We start at 6, that's what we say, and we try to show everybody that if you need help, we're here. We see that mainly in children who might have some other things going on, like ADHD, things like that, dyslexia. And that's like maybe once a week, an hour, to sort of help that out. It's definitely not the biggest group. The biggest group of students is, say, between 13 and 15, 16. Although we see a bit of a peak in that I would say 10, when they start going to high school, sort of bridge that gap a little bit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How would you say GoStudent creates a positive impact on people through your business? What are you trying to really change with people?
Well, I think, like I said, if you look at the people in like our families, our students, that they like learning again. That just because there is an old, I'm now channeling my math teacher from before, and I think many people can relate to that persona. This old gray guy who's been doing the same thing for 30 years is not that inspiring, and therefore I hated math. And if you look at me now at work, where I can apply it, like I'm a madman with my spreadsheets and my calculators. So that for our families, and if you have children, you'll know if your children are happy, the whole family unit is happier. So it just takes such a weight off of families. And then the people who work for us or with us, we work together on a really great project. And right after exam time, we hear these kids texting us, I had an 8 for maths, I never thought I could do that. It's cheesy, but that's what you all do it for, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're growing very fast. You're considered a unicorn as well. Can you explain a bit more where you are, in which countries, how many people?
We're currently in 22 countries with around 2,000 employees, and that's Europe, the States, and South America.
What is the goal? Is the goal to go global?
I think you could already say that we're getting there. I don't think that the goal is not necessarily expansion for the sake of expansion. It needs to fit the market. It needs to fit the people in the market. So where we can be of use, we can add advantage, that's the ambition to grow into.
Mm-hmm. We talked before, and you said that the teachers, the tutors, they are students, but the legislation in each country for students to work is different.
Correct.
So we were talking, for instance, the difference between Belgium and Netherlands.
Yes.
Maybe you can explain it a bit. What's the difference in Belgium and Netherlands for students to work?
It's mainly tax reasons, and I'm not a tax expert, so let's not let's not present that I am. But it's mainly tax reasons where income taxes for students or for student jobs are arranged differently throughout countries. So for Belgium and Holland, that's a difference, but it's across the globe.
It's across the globe. But I understood that the difference is when you work as a student for GoStudent, you need to be independent, and you need to be able to invoice, because there's none of these tutors are on the payroll of GoStudent, right?
That's correct. Yes.
And that is in Belgium an issue for students
because of these tax reasons.
Because of these tax reasons, yes.
Not because of the whole independence thing. I think actually that's what the tutors like. They are independent. They can tell us which hours, which days they can work, and then when we have the client relationship with them, they can just directly discuss us with the students and the family. So I think the independence thing is actually quite the perk for them. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like you said before, we all have an impact of the teachers that we had when we were in high school.
Yes.
There's, like I said also, there's a huge lack of teachers today. Do you feel like with GoStudent you compensate a bit that lack of teachers in the public school, or is that not at all the goal?
It is not the goal, but it is what's happening, I think. Where previously maybe schools could do sort of their own tutoring or their own extra lessons on the side with their own pool of teachers. Now they're stretched so thin that that's not an option anymore. At the same time, I always say, if you're, let's go back to my old math teacher, if that math teacher teaches you 3 times a week and you don't understand, there's not much use in going into an extra class with him, because that's just doing the same and expecting a different result, which is, we all know that's what that is the definition of. So yes, I think for now, yes, it does help, even though that's not the intended goal necessarily.
No, exactly. We'll talk in the second episode a bit more about the care model. We'll dive a bit deeper into it. But would you say that when you look at the global scale that you're working on, that what students today or pupils today, because we really talk about young kids as well, do they face the same challenges on a global scale, or do you really see differences per country or per part of the world?
That's obviously differences. I mean, I don't think we can ever compare the school system in Brazil with Belgium, or that part of the world with this part of the world. But the idea of being in a room, 30 pupils, students, 1 teacher, and the reproducing of it, that's what school is worldwide, and that hasn't changed in at least 100 years. So that lack of innovation compared to what the current world is and what the future will look like for children, I think that is a sort of common challenge worldwide, yes.
Interesting. I'm going to end here the first episode. Thank you very much, Ellen. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening this first episode with Ellen Petit, Country Manager, Netherlands and Belgium of GoStudent. Stay tuned, because in the second episode, I'll dive deeper into the C of care, mainly called collaboration. Thank you very much and take care.
Want to create lasting impact with your brand while feeding sustainable growth? Check out the 𝗃𝗵𝗲 and see how we can help you. 16 Minutes of Care is an independent production from 𝗃𝗵𝗲 𝗣𝗿𝗶, brand strategist, founder of the Care Principles, and author of the book, Does Your Brand Care? Help us reach more companies who are looking for caring and sustainable growth by giving this podcast all the stars it deserves and by sharing it in your network. Thank you and take care.